Guys, we'll get started. It's an honor to have our Board of Visitor meeting here in Washington, D.C. I appreciate everyone who has traveled in and those that are also here to convene what is a really important part of the Air Force Academy and the advocacy for the institution that we love. We've got some opening remarks, and I'm going to delay those just a second because we are honored to have the Secretary of the Air Force, Troy Mink, with us today. And Secretary, thank you for what you do every day, standing up for the Department of the Air Force, for our air and space power. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. This is a group of men and women who, like you, love this institution, love the Department of the Air Force, and want to advocate for it. So I'd like to turn it over to you for comments. And again, thank you for being here today.
Appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody for all the additional work you're doing here to support the Academy. It's our premier institution for training future Air Force leaders, not just training the leaders, but setting the culture of the Air Force. So I appreciate all the work you're doing to help us continue to improve that experience and to be honest, that output, right? The output from the Academy. I appreciate it. I'm actually feeling kind of nice because usually when I'm in this room, I'm testifying. So and some of you are asking me hard questions. So this is actually it's actually nice. But again, I just kind of a few things I want to mention that I would like you to look at, and I don't have answers to all of them, but there's things I'd like you to look at, and feel free to ask me questions as we kind of walk through this. I think we have a little bit of time, so be happy to answer anything that this spurs. So, like I said, the Academy, is turning out officers that will eventually, and I think Cruiser's been in the Air Force almost 35, 40 years, something like that. It sets the next 3-4 decades of the Air Force, what generates out of there. So the culture that we teach, that we instill in the Academy, in the cadets, leadership style that comes out of there, it is not, yes, some of them are only in the Air Force for a short period of time, but if you look across the department, a lot of the leadership that I work with every day came out of the Academy. So it's critically important that we get that culture right and we get that leadership right. And I would argue that that's not always been the case. And I'm looking forward to making sure that we get the place going where we want it. And I'm already optimistic what I've seen out there. I got to go out like the second week in the job. I got to go out there and for the graduation. I was a little bit overwhelmed, I'll be quite honest. Just get like thousands of cadets coming up and shaking your hands. By the way, when 1,000 people shake your hands, as some of you probably know, you about can't open your hand after the end of that. It's and they're all excited, 22-year-old kids. So it was super impressive. So what we're turning out is just critically important, and we talk about it. And I think you probably got a little bit of some Cruiser last night, but integrity, the leadership style, integrity, mental fortitude and resilience. This is a tough job. What they do is you know from what's gone on in the world today, what these officers do later in their career is a tough job. And then I think mental flexibility, right? It is a staggeringly dynamic environment. We need to make sure we're teaching that and just to and maybe set that. We obviously know what's going on.
Recording in progress.
We have crews and pilots that are flying 30, 40 hours. Right. And they're not sitting in, premier economy or global, they're it's a tough job and it's a high stress job. And it is amazing what they do. And it's just not one time they do this. This is how they train, all the way from logistic teams, the maintenance teams that put those aircrafts together. This is a tough job, and it is getting tougher. Right. Midnight Hammer, absolute resolve. Performance is unbelievable, but when we look at what's going on in Ukraine, this is a massive, and what the Chinese are building out, this is a massively dynamic environment. And, we will have pilots in airplanes, thousands of miles out front, coordinating CCA aircraft, right? also spread across hundreds of miles, trying to fuse data from those sensors that are being fed into them. It's almost like you have the back of an AWACS, JSTARS kind of aircraft right inside the cockpit of an airplane. That is, and you see that kind of, and interacting closely with various autonomous support engines running in parallel, making decisions on what has to happen in this extremely high risk, high threat environment, high stress environment. That's what we're training, right? We're already doing that now, and that is going to get massively more difficult in the future, right? I mean, right now, I think probably every cadet there is using Grok and ChatGPT to help with their homework. I know my kids in college are. I mean, I help them using Grok and ChatGPT, but interacting with those autonomous agents, not just in the airplane, but in the logistics environment, and obviously in the modernization and the acquisition development environment, but really across the board. So I think when we talk about leaders, they have to be able to operate more so in the Air Force and Space Force from a technical perspective, are really building and fielding and operating, as I said, some of those complex systems humans have ever built. To be quite honest, the most complicated systems that humans have ever built. So we have to have a leadership force that can do that. And also, we talk a lot about what goes on in the academy, but I was ROTC. A lot of what the academy sets that culture, sets that leadership approach that no matter where you're being commissioned from, kind of flows down from that. So it's not just 2,000 to 4,000 cadets out there that you're affecting every year, right? It's really the entire commissioning crew. So how we set that up, how we do that, how we're training is critical. And I'm not sure that we're there. And I'll talk about it at the end. The last thing is, I think we have an infrastructure challenge, right, at the academy. And it's not just the dorms, which are, but it's, do we have the right stimulation? Do we have the right IT? Do we have the right training environments to start teaching the cadets how to be leaders in that sort of environment? Right. I know there's been some discussion about that, some labs I want to set up. I think, and I don't know exactly what the answer is, but we have to be able to do that right when they come into the academy. I mean, in some cases, they have better simulation environments on their home computers of what's going on in combat than we actually provide them sometimes at work, right? And so that has to change, has to start at the academy. Competition, right? We're creating leaders, but we're creating leaders that need to win, right? So competition is a big part of that. A lot of focus is on athletics, right? I'm obviously a huge fan. Went to the Ohio State University, academic and athletic excellence all in one. So athletics is no insult intended there, Secretary or Senator. But I think when I talk about being competitors, it's across the board, right? I think we need to teach being competitive at the academy. They need to be aggressive. They need to be winners. I don't care if that's on the field of athletics, or that is, one of the things the Cruiser and I try to push is, they do some competitive aerobatics now. The flying clubs do. We want to push more of that. It doesn't matter what we're talking about from a academic competition. We have to be breeding competitors, because that's what it takes. If you want to be a winner, you got to be a competitor, and we need to do that no matter what they're doing at the academy. Academics. There's, as you probably know, I come from a pretty tech background. But I started out on active duty and went through the critical military training. And I think it's a balance. I think they're doing a good job, the best I can tell. But I haven't spent enough time out there, and that's what we're looking for you to do. But how do you balance that military training with the technical in other academic parts of their training to turn those officers out, right? I think everybody, as I'd said before, everybody that comes out of the academy should have a solid technical background. Doesn't mean they should all be engineers, right? But again, what they're operating, what they're doing, what they're going to be doing in the 30 to 40 years of their career, hopefully, is going to be based on understanding the technology they're employing. understanding what it can do, what it can't do, what the risks are, what the potential ethics are associated with how they're employing it, is critical, and we need to make sure that training and the integrity. Integrity comes natural, but it also needs to be taught, right? We need to make sure that in everything we do, from an academic and other perspective, we need to focus on. I think we're, over the next, and I know you're tracking, but over the next, 3 to 6 months, the leadership at the academy, the SOUP, and a commandant and on the academic side are all being changed out. Fangs, I think you probably know, has been selected. Secretary approved him. I think he's gonna be great. He's got that combat experience. Fangs. He's Balapina colonel. He's a colonel. He's at DARPA right now. He's going out, right? Balapine. Yes. Thanks. But he's got that fighter pilot, high end, test pilot kind of, but also, he's leading some of the AI efforts at DARPA, right? So he's got that wide background. That's the kind of thing that we need. I think he's gonna be great out there. Kind of last thing I'll mention is the physical infrastructure out there. As many of you are aware, the chapel was probably not the best executed milcon in the history of the Air Force. There's a whole host of reasons. I'm not going to go into that, but we can't allow that to happen again. And that is a very small percentage of what needs to be done at the academy. The dorms need to be replaced, right? So I think before I finish up my tour over the next 3 years, I'm hoping that we can figure out a way to get well into those. And what I'm talking about is, the dorms, just a lot of challenges with, a lot of historic sites, but we have to figure out a way to move quickly and move cost effectively, and make that actually the place. We're talking about the culture, we're talking about the leadership, and then, they're living in facilities that if the boiler goes down, we're not sure what we're going to do with the cadets, because stuff's so old, hard to replace. So we need to make the facility, how we prioritize the budget process. We're gonna be looking at that, where they rank in both the MILCON and other physical infrastructure support. We're going to be taking a look at that, but I need your feedback on where we need to focus, how we need to focus that. And as I said before, we start talking about, are we creating the right training environment from an IT, from a simulation? This is all new infrastructure that has to be built out, and sometimes it's not cheap, and it's really not cheap if it's not done right. So that's going to be a focus of mine, is making sure that we do those things that are necessary to make sure that the academy is not just teaching the right leadership, but has the infrastructure to do that well. So that's kind of where I'm focused on. That's where I want your help on. Tell me where within that broad kind of set that we need to push on, where I need to push on, and where you need help in doing your job. Just please let me know. Again, I can't thank you enough for everything you're doing. This is a lot of work. I really appreciate it, and I'm happy to answer a few questions I have just a few minutes. Sure.
What's your thoughts? Leadership, because that's obviously the future. We're seeing it in my state, but no telling how many we build in Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. And when I talk about, do we have the right, IT simulation ranges there to actually allow the cadets to learn how to use and learn how to be leaders in that environment, right? I think that's critically important. I mean, it is going to be a future. I think we have to be a little bit careful about how much we take away from any of these conflicts. But there is absolutely no question. Like I mentioned, we're going to have pilots, and I know I've talked to you in more detail on this. Pilots sitting in airplanes, operating various levels of very advanced drones in an extremely stressful environment. How do we teach that leadership? How do we teach that that mental agility that's going to be required to do that. And it needs to start there, right? I mean, it's not just drones. It is drones. Drones are critically important, but it's really the autonomous vehicles, the autonomous agents that are supporting us and running those vehicles and making those decisions on how you're going to conduct operations. That is a very different environment than we are today. I mean, the most advanced interaction these cadets are probably happen is with, Grok and ChatGPT, right? That's more than likely that's the most advanced interaction they're having with autonomous systems is not really autonomous systems, but autonomous agents, right? That's obviously not enough. How do we extend that and build what's required, and not just the infrastructure, but the training syllabus is the approach to training to do that. There's a lot of work, and I know they've already started. I know General Bonfine's already started. I know they've already started looking at that, but that needs to be a focus, right?
So
One way or another, it's going to be critical.
Mr. Secretary, in our pre-meeting, we talked about developing focus groups so we can deep dive and really get into detail in certain areas that you're concerned about to give you the best advice going forward, like infrastructure, AI, discipline, stuff like that. In order to do that, according to our bylaws and charter, we need your approval to stand up these focus groups and then bring in outside experts, because as smart as we all are, we don't have exact technology and excellent, sir.
So I'm giving you kind of a series of them that I think I'd love to have you focus on, right? But I'm not going to say that's all of them. I'm open to others to follow.
You'll see paperwork coming your way, sir. Thank you.
Jeff.
Mr. Secretary, just on the infrastructure issue, and we talked about this in the pre-meeting a little bit. The Air Force Academy has a unique situation because it was all sort of built at the same time. So our recapitalization needs are kind of unique. But I think two things. One, this group can be your advocates on Capitol Hill, but we're really going to need the administration, not just to say, here's a project here or there, but to come up with a complete strategy, overall plan to recapitalize the academy. And as part of that, I also wanted to just point out, I think we need to look at inventive ways maybe to do this, not the traditional MilCon way. We have foundations and other things, as some of the other service academies have been able to do a little bit more for a lot less money. And I hope that you'd be willing to look at that as ways to sort of increase our bang for the buck as well.
I agree. We need to do that. I mean, the chapel, it's a beautiful historic site. We probably should have pulled all the historic artifacts out of it, leveled it, built it to look exactly like it does now. It would have taken half as much money and half as long. And we'd have a building that's much better built to survive the weather of Colorado for the next 50 to 100 years. That's going to require help from the Hill, from probably the president, the state, because I think we're going to have to take a different approach to some of this infrastructure. And it's not only it's kind of replacing the existing infrastructure, but I think it's also building out what additional infrastructure is required.
Thank you.
Well, Secretary, thank you. This is, I think, music to our ears. You have a board here that is in place to advocate and to listen. And I know we're going to get an update from the superintendent, which we're looking forward to. But these working groups and the work that these folks are doing, I think having access to the Air Force Academy, being able to go out and interact with the cadets and the faculty and really provide the firepower here on Capitol Hill, especially to get the things done resource-wise that we know we need. And we've touched on a few. We'll make some additional recommendations that I think will match up very, very, very closely with what you've just said. So we appreciate that. And I'll make some opening remarks. And if you have any other comments, what I'd like to say here is that since our last meeting in December, where we discussed this meeting today is a time to discuss the semi-annual report, but to also hear from the superintendent what the needs are and the priorities for 2026. We plan to hold a virtual meeting in the spring that will reflect the work, what we hear today, and will reflect the work that we can do to advocate for those priorities. And we will plan on delivering a second report to Secretary Hegseth in the summer of this year. But again, I want to thank you for coming today. And I'd like to start the official part of this by welcoming our new members. We have 3 new senators who have been appointed. Senator Ted Budd from North Carolina, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma, and Senator Kramer from North Dakota, all passionate about our patriots, but specifically about air power and space power, and their role and their service on the Armed Service Committee and also on the Appropriations Committee is going to be a very, very good fit for this board to hear those priorities. I'd like to commend the selection of Colonel James Valpiani Fangs as the Dean of Faculty. I was able to have a phone call with him that is very inspiring. And I told him, I said, that's what you get for graduating _1 in your class is more time in the dean's realm. But he is just an inspiration, and I think he's going to do great things. Here's a brief summary of our semi-annual report that we just submitted to Secretary Hegseth. I know you've had a chance to see it, but the first recommendation that we looked at was increasing the end strength of the cadet wing from 4,000 cadets to 4,400 cadets. We think this is really important to match up with what is authorized and also to have some parity between West Point and Annapolis for our airmen and Space Force guardians, future leaders. We also recommend an audit by the Air Force Manpower Analysis Agency on the current faculty composition. And I think this audit would include reviewing all the personnel that are assigned to the Dean of Faculty, including active duty military, government civilians, reserve component military members, visiting professors, privately funded professors, international officers, and fellows. We believe that a detailed analysis on the current state and required number of personnel is very beneficial to the future, and especially looking at that end strength recommendation of 4,400, that this is going to be a very key aspect and important to making those decisions. I'm concerned by the information that we learned in our last meeting about a reduction in manpower across the academy, and I think this audit would aid in helping understand that situation better, of where we're going. We recommend that the Department of War establish a military service academy commission. We recommend that this commission study the impacts of name, image, and likeness on the service academies, that they develop a standardized process to implement a merit-based admissions guidance and guidelines that could also determine if the service academies should have a standardized accreditation agency. And that's not just for the Air Force Academy, but across all the service academies. I think a commission is needed to analyze these areas and ensure that the service academies remain competitive and effective. We have recommended a review of the disciplinary procedures at the academy, and I think this will help with an independent top-down assessment of those procedures across all Air Force Academy systems. And you know, the academy must ensure that the principles of justice and fairness are upheld, that it remains, that integrity and character remain at the top of everyone's mind. I think as we've just talked about, and we've heard your comments, Secretary, that we need to reinvest and revitalize the infrastructure and other aspects of the service academies, but specifically that the Department of War collaborate with the House and Senate Armed Service Committees to dedicate a specific section of the fiscal year 27 National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, to focus on reinvesting in our nation's military service academies. This includes funding the proposed Aerospace and Cyber Education Center. I'm looking forward to working with you, Secretary, alongside Secretary Hegseth, in looking at these recommendations and implementing them. As outlined in our report, the board has established some focus groups that were just mentioned. Those cover things like accreditation, admissions, AI, athletics, and infrastructure. And throughout this meeting today, we will discuss roadmaps for those working groups. And the point is much deeper. It's not just an oversight function here. The point is to work alongside you, to work alongside the superintendent, and to truly advocate. And I'll let the leads of these working groups get into those details. But I'll just say, as a graduate of this institution, that I love this institution, and we want to see it succeed, not for selfish reasons, not because, yes, of course, we want to beat Navy and Army every year in everything we do, but we want to see it succeed because in the last 9 months, air power has played the dominant role in achieving strategic effects for the President of the United States. Air power and space power have given the president the tools needed to achieve those effects. And Operation Midnight Hammer and a few others that we've seen recently, air power and space power delivered the decisive effects. And it starts, as you mentioned, with setting the tone at the Air Force Academy, because that also transcends to the other commissioning sources, and it sets the standard for the way that we are going to train our future officers. So I couldn't be prouder to be a graduate and prouder of the airmen and the guardians who are out there right now as we speak, defending our great nation. This board, as we mentioned, with new members, is going to be your chief advocacy arm for making sure that the Air Force Academy can and will be for many, many decades, the preeminent service academy. We've got a great schedule and agenda today. But I thought I would, before we go to the superintendent for his update, I thought I'd give you the floor again. I know you have a schedule, but any remarks before you have to?
No, I just want to again say thanks. By the way, just when you're walking through thinking about it, we talked a lot about the air side and what we need to train leaders in the air environment, the space environment, particularly the space control aspects of the space environment. That's kind of a mission set that we've never really done before. So it's not just like improving and evolving. It's just totally new, right? We're basically doing things that there is almost no basis to how you do operations and how you lead in those kinds of environments. So I really appreciate your support and diving into those focus teams and giving some recommendations. And like I said, we have a good 3 years to get a whole lot done. So let's do it. So thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Secretary. We are joined virtually by the Superintendent of the Air Force Academy, Lieutenant General Bauernfein. We thank General Bauernfein for his leadership, for guiding this institution, and we have asked the superintendent to provide us an update and really to set some priorities that this board needs to hear. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over virtually for an update from the superintendent.
Representative Pfluger, Lieutenant General Bauernfein here. Just a quick AV check. We were good before, but I'd like to know we're still good.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Outstanding. Well, Representative Pfluger and the members of the Board of Visitors, thank you so much for your time and very much appreciate as we go through the dynamic times that we're in right now with, thankfully we now have a wonderful, the government is now open and the resources will be flowing with initial distribution to get after these priorities, and very much appreciate your advocacy and support. And today we wanted to quickly go over 3 things. First is USAFA 2025 year in review, give you a highlight of what our amazing young Americans and our steadfast permanent party have been doing here at the United States Air Force Academy. Give you an insight into the projects we plan on taking on in 2026 to move us forward. And then to start, as Secretary Mink talked about, give y'all a vision for USAFA 2050, which is that long-term infrastructure development that will ensure that we go from being an aged installation to a modern and technologically advanced installation to prepare our future leaders for the dynamics of modern warfare. So leading into that, let's talk about USAFA 2025, what happened. And this is an acknowledgement for all the grads that are out there. We know that it is year-round military, academic, and athletic work, hard times, and achievements throughout the year. And we just want to pause a little bit to reflect on the pivot that we took in 2025. And acknowledging that as we look to our priorities, balancing upon what Secretary Mink said is we want those warfighters to win. We want those leaders of character quality, and we want those critical thinkers to adapt, because the fight that happened yesterday is going to change tomorrow. And how do we develop those warrior leaders with that prioritization and that balance across all three? And those are our priorities from an institutional strategic perspective. And we want to take a little time and highlight what we have done on the forging warfighters to win. And thankfully, there's some great support from the Department of the Air Force as well as donor dollars. We're able to accelerate the purchase of small unmanned aerial systems, or drones, to put into the hands of our future warfighters more advanced small unmanned aerial systems, and they start to use them tactically and in scenario based, as well as in their academic endeavors. We've also built new training partnerships to bring other teammates to bear as we work through the training of our warrior leaders. And then academically, we're proud to report that we added 3 new warfighting minors last year, with a warfighting minor on future conflict that's heavily supported by our Institute of Future Conflict, as well as warfighting minors in quantum technologies and aerospace materials, and more to come as we continue to move forward. As well as we looked at practice, we leaned in hard into our summer programs, knowing that to conduct the military training required, we looked to our airmanship programs where we trust our cadets to teach each other. So we started also training our cadets to teach the key military skills that are required on modern day battlefields. And we graduated 480 cadet instructors that supported the year-round military training. And we've brought to bear year-round qualification training of weapons, because having confidence in your small arms and your long gun is critical no matter which battle space you find yourself in. And proud to report that for the class of 29 that came in on their M4, 97% qualified, 15% delivered expert. And based upon informal surveys, we're thinking about 2/3 of the young Americans had never touched a weapon before. And so very positive as it went forward. We've also established a Space Week and reinforced azimuth, because as discussed with Secretary Mink, it's not just about air, it's air, space, and cyber. How do we develop our warrior leaders that are comfortable in all three as they graduate here, knowing that they will become experts in one of those in their pathways later as we go forward? And then proud of what the 306 Flying Training Group has done for us at the Air Force Academy. While assigned to Air Education and Training Command, they exceeded their program flight training with 100% completion and delivered over 12,700 flying hours and over 22,000 successful jumps throughout the year, and very much given that air-mindedness and air mindset for our cadets. And as discussed before, we're leaning in harder that these cadets, they have the secret briefings, and to develop that critical thinking, we have to start arming them not only with our capabilities, but what our adversary capabilities are, so they can start to unleash their thinking to how they're going to approach the problems. So over the year, we conducted over 100 intel briefs, and of those, 90 were led and delivered by cadets themselves. And we were happy to bring in the Midnight Hammer representatives as well, 2 pilots, an intel officer, and a maintenance officer that gave a great insight to the entire cadet wing on the dynamics of that incredible mission and what air power, space power, and cyber power could bring to those successful, mission. And then on the perform, we have fully established our spring and fall exercises with validation exercise in the fall, to where cadet squadron commanders, given the resources, are leading their squadrons through the required training. And then we're assessing them in the spring as it moves forward with those challenges. And as discussed before, we started with a crawl, walk, run perspective. And I will tell you, the cadets are chomping at the bit and they're doing very well in that, and excited to see the scenarios they'll be facing this spring as a team as it leans into it. And for last year, we had over 3,500 of cadets in the field going through those exercises and performing exceptionally well, and proud of them. And now, as far as rated jobs, proud to report, and we'll talk more about this, that we have worked with our Department of Air Force and greatly increased the number of rated jobs for all of our cadet wing. As a data point, the class of 2025 who graduated in May had 448 rated jobs, which was a 16% increase over the class of 24. And the class of 26, who will be graduating here in a few short months, has 605 rated slots, which is a 35% increase. And just this morning, I approved another one of our warrior leaders to transition from an overmanned AFSC into pilot training as it moves forward. And we'd like to reinforce also that it's not just the cadet wing as a whole, but thanks to our athletic department, thanks to our coaches, and thanks to our operational reps that are assigned to the coaches, we've been spending more time with our incredible intercollegiate athletes and giving them awareness that there are more opportunities out there. And we have seen a significant increase of our IC athletes going into rated career fields. So they are bringing that warrior mindset with them into aviation, and very proud of that. And happy to report that going back to the fall, or to the summer, our record against our teammates at West Point and Annapolis, that against West Point, we were proud to report a 10-4 record, and against Annapolis, 7-6. And we're looking to achieve even more in that regards. And that's across intercollegiate activities, competitive clubs, as well as competitions on our cyber teams. And we're proud of the national championships champions that have come forward, with 6 individual and 3 team champions. You see right there, at the time, cadet first class, Patrick Hoops, now second lieutenant Patrick Hoops, who's part of the world-class athlete program that is continuing to bring it strong, and looking forward to him being in future Olympics as it goes forward. We also had 3 NCAA top 25 finishes. Our flying team that is supported by the 306 Flying Training Group, but led by cadets, delivered their 39th consecutive championship. And our Wings of Blue brought home 35 medals and 2 national collegiate records. And then just want to reinforce that our cyber team also brought it strong at the last year's competition, not only beating West Point and Annapolis, but also the team that competed from our NSA. So a very strong cyber team as it goes forward. So proud of the team on the War Fighters to Win aspect. But we also go and have a discussion about, hey, how are we inspiring our leaders of character and quality? And as discussed, the first year was a cultural reset. And as we started last August, we started with that this is the year of why, and the year of cadet empowerment. And the cadets have absolutely embraced that, but also with some fits as that has gone forward, because they want to be empowered, but they also want to be told what to do. And our establishment is now, we're starting to say, here is what you need to do. How you get there is at your level as either a cadet squadron commander or a team captain as it goes forward. And so they are very much embracing that role and learning those leadership lessons of, are you going to do it all as a cadet squadron commander? Are you going to empower your A3? Are you going to empower your flight commanders and go through that leadership laboratory to prepare your squadrons for the validation exercise as well as the culmination exercise? And last time we mentioned we had updated our fitness standards, and I will tell you we are now complete with the update of that fitness standards, where we have reestablished that all aspects of the cadet physical fitness test must meet minimum standards as that goes forward, versus just a minimum score, a little bit of a return to the old of the 90s as lean into it. And I will tell you that the cadet wing absolutely responded. First off, the class of 2029 showed up fully prepared physically. And if I remember correctly, delivered physical PFT scores on average 5% above the last 5 years' first PFTs. And then the whole cadet wing this fall up their PFT and AFT scores as a whole by 3% across all 4,000 teammates. So they're taking it on. And then proud to report that for the development of our permanent party squadron commanders, that we had the Welsh Leadership Program where we were in partnership with the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. And it had started to focus primarily on counseling education. And we worked with Air University and the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. And we have refocused that it is going to be a master's in military leadership with that focus on the military side of leadership, understanding there will be some counseling support to that, but it's about the aspect of command is more important. And just last month, the Colorado Regents, while we have been executing this since the fall, the Colorado Regents approved that change as we went forward. And for practice, as we lean into it, we're also taking advantage of the multi-domain lab through all aspects of our military training and bringing in those cyber effects and space effects into our military training, not just being solely in the field as it moves forward, and leveraging those Silver Saturdays to allow the cadet squadron commanders to train their force as required. But also if there's a time they need to take a break, that's a decision they can make. But at the end of the day, the Valex in the fall and the Colex in the spring is the target they're moving forward and taking that on. And then we also established an operation order called Protect Our House. While it's great that we come in force to our football games, all of our intercollegiate athletes deserve that home field advantage, and very excited to see our cadets come in force to many of the competitions. And we're still working through that so that our IC athletes can have a sea of support during a home game throughout the year, and really kind of leaning into that. And then lastly, as reported last time, we have completed the revitalization of our honor code, where in the past there was a decision to parse the honor code, and we have returned to the aspect that the honor code is holistic, will not be parsed. There is an acknowledgement that for young Americans that this may be the first time under an honor code. So in their first year or two, there might be different sanctions, but the longer you're under the umbrella of the honor code, the sanctions will become more enforced as that goes forward. Always supported by honor probation, honor rehabilitation, mentors, as well as, that self-reflection required to move yourself forward. And then we hosted an outstanding National Character and Leadership Symposium, the 33rd annual, where our focus was on warfighters to win, and brought in amazing speakers to share their story of what it meant to prepare, to be in harm's way and to defend this great nation. And we're proud to report that the commitment rate for the class of 28, as they threw their paw to commit to serving our great nation, was 98%. One of the highest we've seen over the last 17 years. We're also reporting 36 All-American athletes that are displaying excellence on the field, but also that character that brings them forward as an All-American. I already discussed the improved fitness scores, and letting you know that as far as the class of 2030 coming in, those future leaders of character and quality, our applications are up 11% over the last 5 years. And proud to report that as far as our blue chip athletes, we are approximately, let's call it 30% ahead of where we were last year on the offers to make sure that we're
Superintendent, I think you might be on mute if there's not another tech problem. General, can you hear us?
USAFA is currently having technical difficulties, and they are currently working on it.
Maybe do it.
What's that?
I mean, total of the 7 in here.
Bring in approximately 10 or 14, bring them up 4,000. I don't think that will get up to 40. Allow.
Oh, out of session, yeah. Where's y'all going? Left one.
Okay. Till Monday.
You had a big deal down in Florida. Down West Palm. In a middle.
Swamp.
Be too close to my level. Vampires.
I can hear them.
Mic check.
We can hear you.
Okay. Representative Pfluger, this is General Bauernfein. One last AV check. I've transitioned to Plan B.
Okay, we've got you loud and clear.
And sir, if I may ask, did we stop at motivating critical thinkers to adapt?
Yeah, right at the recruited athlete piece.
Okay. Aspect. Okay. So we're going to go forward to motivating critical thinkers to adapt, that we've highlighted our research partnerships, that we have 259 incredible research partnerships. We are sustaining our 30 majors and our 22 minors. The class of 26, all majors confirmed. Class of 27, all majors confirmed. And high confidence in the class of 28, all majors being supported. Just waiting for the class of 28 to all select as that moves forward. And then our academic rigor is being sustained. I'd like to report as we lean into this that through the recent rankings, we were listed as the #2 top public school in the nation, and we raised from #8 to #5 in the nation as a top liberal arts college. And then we were proud to have opened the Madeira Cyber Innovation Center has been opened, which was part government, part donor funded, and getting great partnership with Air Combat Command CyberWorks, the National Guard, as well as industry partners as we go after hard Air Force and Space Force problems, while our cadets in our computer engineering and computer science classes are helping in that program. Next slide. We've also made sure that for our military training, it's not military training for training's sake. It's also an acknowledgement that we have an adversary focused training and bringing in those intelligence reports, as well as opposing forces to challenge our cadets. We continue a premier research program with over 300 cadets being involved in the class of during the summer of 2025, and 180 cadet independent research studies with faculty and industry partners, ranging from space operations to cyber defense, advanced materials, propulsion, human performance, and data science. We also executed the first semester with the Air Force Institute of Technology of a beta program of allowing our
more advanced academically minded cadets to start their master's degrees in systems engineering while here at the United States Air Force Academy. And we had 9 pathfinding cadets that leaned into that. And then finally, we have updated our physical education classes to adjust physical education towards more of that warfighting focus, to include for our cadets going into rated career fields, bringing a class on rated physical readiness, and also acknowledging that we are bringing advanced water survival and advanced combatives to bear for our physical education. And given the audio challenges we have, I just want to confirm that you still have me.
We do have you. Thank you.
Outstanding. Continuing on. And then in the performance side, we're proud that our cadets and faculty published over 1,000 new publications, and we were awarded 7 patents and 19 cadets involved in that. Our FalconSat program continues to go strong, with 3 FalconSats still in orbit, testing our astronautical engineering and other capabilities as well. And then our mock trial and forensics team brought home great success in their national competitions. And then our prestigious scholarships, 11 scholars, an exceptionally strong year with 2 Rhodes Scholars, 5 Fulbright, 2 Barry Goldwater, 1 Truman, and 1 Holiday Scholar. And then just last time we had reported that there was a complaint to our institutional accreditation body about our accreditation. And we were able to respond effectively to our accrediting body, correct much of the misinformation, and highlight that we are well on our track of sustaining accreditation. And that was confirmed in mid-December as we lean forward. So across the board, very successful. And continuing on in the slides where we talk about those warfighters, leaders, and critical thinkers, I want to take a step back and talk about the individual classes. That the class of 2025 had 448 rated jobs, a 16% increase. The class of 26 is at 605, a 35% increase. The class of 27 brought it strong with a 98.6 commitment rate. And then class of 28 selected their class exemplar, Medal of Honor winner, Sergeant Levito. The class of 29, as reported, showed up strong with PT. And then as discussed, the class of 2030 is showing up with an 11% increase over our previous 3-year average. And now 2025 is in the books. We want to talk about what's going on in 2026. We're excited to onboard Colonel Volpiani here in late February, early March.
Recording in progress.
Is that check? Okay. And so when Colonel Volpiani is on here, we look forward to what he will bring forward to the team. We're also excited about celebrating America's 250th anniversary of our independence as we lean in. And as we go into that, our plan here at the United States Air Force Academy is to select 13 events bracketed starting on the left with our National Character and Leadership Symposium and ending with Parents Weekend in September. And we will use all of these events to celebrate our nation's 250th. We are also working very closely with Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Wilsbach, and Air Education Command to enhance airmanship at the United States Air Force Academy. As we work to transition the 306 Flying Training Group potentially back to USAFA, Vice Air Education and Training Command, but also have a conversation for the resources required to return to airmanship for all versus airmanship for some. And so we have a great vision there and look forward to detailing the resources and the recapitalization that will be required to make that vision a reality. And I'm excited for that opportunity. And then as discussed, how do we advocate for increased USAFA in strength? And from our perspective, it's more about as our Space Force appears to grow, which is an indicator, as well as assisting in correcting the deficit in rated personnel in our Air Force, still tracking a large shortfall of pilots in our Air Force. How can the United States Air Force Academy with an increased student body and an increased airmanship program and guardianship program help address Space Force and Air Force growth. And now I would like to pivot very quickly as Secretary Mink talked about our vision for addressing the installation challenges at the United States Air Force Academy. I'll pause quickly right there, Rep. Pfluger, just to make sure we're still got a couple more minutes.
Yes, we sure do. Thank you.
So here is our concept for USAFA 2050. And here's our challenge that's been discussed. We were primarily built between 1955 and 1966 with a 50-year design life. All of our facilities, well, the majority of our facilities are 15 years beyond their design life. We have had chronic underfunding over the years, well below the Air Force standard, and we're now facing frequent facility failures that we will detail. That is having both negative USAFA mission impact, as well in time, it will be a loss of the competitive edge that we have for the recruiting and retention of young Americans and the required permanent party. And so our vision is that we will sustain, modernize, and develop cutting-edge facilities to remain America's premier service academy, forging warrior leaders with the air, space, and cyber skills, knowledge, and experience to fight and win our nation's wars. And I really appreciated Secretary Mink doubling down on that. It's not just about the competition, but having that mindset to win. And this is the mission impact that we're seeing, is that we assess that we cannot recruit and retain the best and brightest young people, as well as the staff and faculty to train, teach, and inspire them with crumbling, outdated infrastructure and technology. And you can see there, Saigon Hall, one of our dormitories, 50 emergency repairs just in the last year. Our aeronautics lab with a frozen pipe, slowing down operations. Y'all are intimately tracking what's ongoing at the chapel. And this from the cadet gym just a couple of weeks ago was from pipes that burst underground and flooded our cadet gym. Very thankful to our incredible 10th Air Base Wing and our athletic department for swarming these issues, but this is becoming more and more common. And so that underinvestment is equaling a failure to meet basic needs. It's leading to increased time and money to address them. And in my assessment, in time, it will decrease our competitive edge and our reputation. And this is a challenge over time. And the chart to the right details what we have received to sustain our installation. And you'll see there that PRV equals the plant replacement value. What percentage are you require every year to sustain? And we know in the NDAA, it's a goal of 4%. And that is a report of what we've actually received of approximately $40 million a year. We've also benefited from donor dollars, but I would also want to demystify donor dollars. They are wonderful when we receive them. They are absolutely enhancing when we receive them. But what we do not receive with them are any sustainment dollars for the facility. So with every gift comes a bill. And that's just acknowledged as we move forward in that. And that unpredictable underfunding has led to $4.2 billion in deferred projects for our United States Air Force Academy. And that is a significant hole that we have to address. And the way ahead that we're offering is USAFA 2050, with a vision that if we provide sufficient resources to build and maintain a modern world-class facilities that support our mission of forging tomorrow's warfighters, leaders, and critical thinkers ready to lead the joint force on day one. And that's critical, as Secretary Mink highlighted, that they've got to be ready for a very dynamic enterprise on day one. We also offer that money is a challenge. We offer that USAFA is one of a kind, that while there are 183 Air Force and Space Force installations, there is only one United States Air Force Academy. And as such, we are having the conversation of, should we be funded via the traditional allocation through installation management and sustainment command, or as a DAF-funded top-line institution. And our recommendation based on our early math, the chart to the right is a detail of all the facilities and when the time and cost and replacements would be required. But that equates in big bumper sticker to a $340 million annual bill in perpetuity. And that would lead to things that would enable us to recapitalize what we have, like the Saigon Vandenberg Hall renovations, sustain our key infrastructure like the central heat plant and wastewater plant, and then modernize with items like putting a large enough skiff inside of Fairchild Hall so our cadets can wrestle with the highest end challenges, but also building an airspace and cyber complex that I will detail now. And so the exemplar as we modernize this is that we must continue producing innovative problem-solving warfighters as we lean into that. And that's that appreciation that they must be air-minded, space-minded, cyber-minded. Even our rated personnel are going to have to understand how the space and cyber environment works. The same for our guardians, the same for our cyber warriors. They must all understand it at a basic and operational level, knowing that as they go in their career fields, they'll become experts in their specific career fields. And our vision then is an air, space, and cyber complex. With the opening of the Madeira Cyber Innovation Center, that gives us one end of the complex. But what we would like to do now is to use the other end as the aerospace lab and bring it out of the 60s into the 2030s. And then in between, use that terrain to build a space education center that gives us that academic and collaborative space that enables high-level research capacity, but also with the understanding that more and more of operations is becoming at a higher classification, enable that research and training at higher classifications. And from that, our perspective is the Aero Lab is shovel ready. It was built in the 60s and it is ready to go. And it is a unique facility, not only for our cadets and permanent party, but also our Air Force. And our Aero Lab is routinely used to buy down risk for Arnold Air Station's more advanced Aero Lab testing as that moves forward. So we see an opportunity for an investment of $25 million to bring our Aero Lab up to the appropriate levels for modern day testing. To the far right, we've talked about the Madeira Cyber Innovation Center, and that is a great addition. And we are now learning how best to use that new facility that we got from both government dollars and gift dollars. But in between is where we're missing. We have outgrown our astronautical engineering spaces, and we just need a new facility to support space education and to instill that space mindset for all cadets and to really up our game for our guardians. And our vision there would be top secret labs and classrooms, as well as modern infrastructure to support the ongoing efforts in space industry, space design, space engineering, and space operations. And so between all of those, this is our vision for USAFA 2050 with the exemplar of the airspace and cyber complex. But we were currently working with SAF IE, Mr. Borders team, to go back to that prior chart that shows all of our facilities in the time of how we can develop that plan to start to move from vision into a program, into execution, if validated by the Secretary. And that is our update from USAFA, and we stand by any questions on our update. Over.
Thank you, Colonel Bauernfein. We appreciate that. We'll open it up to questions, and I know and the Senate may have some votes upcoming, so I'll yield to y'all first for questions. Senator Budd.
Thank you, General. Just confirming you can hear me.
And Senator Budd, have you loud and clear?
Yeah, thanks. Enjoyed the conversation yesterday. Thanks for the call. Understand some of the training aircraft are 50 years old, 20,000 hours. Sounds like a good start. Any plans to recapitalize those with newer aircraft?
Yes, sir.
we just switched audio systems in the middle of this, or do you still have me?
I've got you.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'm working with a concept with General Wilsbach right now, and I'm going to say it's multi-phase as we talk about airmanship for all. And again, this is a vision. It's not been approved, but it's a vision. As we pivot to airmanship for all, which I remember from my time many, many years prior, the goal would be that all freshmen go through an Aviation 100 course, which would be primarily virtual reality, but it would end with an actual flight, with an instructor. They are not being assessed, but they will be given an opportunity to actually feel aviation as a freshman. And then as a sophomore, how do we have a soaring program that is soaring for all, so that all cadets get an opportunity to enter into the soaring program to, feel that actual, excitement and joy of aviation from a sailplane perspective. And the key part there that we'll have to have in discussions then is, when is the appropriate time for a cadet at the Air Force Academy to pick their job? In my conversations, again, I believe that we should have conversations of pulling job selection further left, because then that enables us to focus key developmental time for those cadets on the career fields they're going into. And if we can sustain the number of rated positions we're getting, talk 600 to 700 rated positions a year, depending on whether we grow the cadet wing or not, we would need to recapitalize our powered flight program to enable that next level, even at a vision. And I've not even talked with their education and training command about this yet, but would we have the time and space, working with the dean, the athletic director, and the commandant, that those those people that are being selected for rated, that we could get them initial pilot training complete while at the academy. And when they graduate and commission, they go straight to UPT and T6s. So that's a vision, sir, but we're now in the aspect of putting pen to paper and the resources required to make that a reality. Over.
Very good. Thank you, General.
Representative Bacon. To the superintendent, we appreciate the update. What is the best way to replace the dorms? You don't have enough dorm rooms to tear down a dorm and then rebuild there, so you're gonna probably have to build a dorm on an empty spot now. But have you all thought through that?
Sir, there's a couple concepts, and I would like to come back to you on that. Right now, we are doing the dorm renovations in phases, simply because of the number of beds we require, and the phases are helping us restrict the number of beds. But we're also taking advantage that we can go to 3-person rooms for a good majority of our cadets, which was common when the cadet wing was much larger as we go forward. So there is the space for that. There has been a conversation of, given that we are now in I would say, a perpetual sustainment of Cy John Hall to Fairchild Hall to Vandenberg, would the academy benefit from a swing space dormitory of a couple hundred beds as that goes forward? But we've got to that is a question that we are researching, and we would have to follow up for appropriate siting and cost. My gut tells me there's a there, but we need to do more analysis, sir. Over.
Okay, thank you. Just from my vantage point, the quality of life in the dorms is probably one of the bigger issues to tackle. Anyway, I yield.
Thank you, sir.
I'll ask the next questions, Congressman Pfluger. We've talked a lot about the chapel renovation over the last couple of months, and what I'd like to kind of know is, how does the Air Force Academy fit into the Air Force corporate structure, if you will? And specifically, are you competing with operational units, or does the Air Force carve out money in advance for the projects that you've just talked to us about?
Sir, we absolutely compete with operation units, and that's of the USAFA 2050. That's the conversation we're having with the Department of Air Forces. Should we be competing with the operational units, or should we be a cutout? As I understand, not 100% confident, but as I understand, Army and Navy, they are cut out of top line and not through their corporate process as it goes forward. But right now, all MILCON and all sustainment requirements, we must compete at the IMSC Installation Management and Sustainment Command against all other 183 requirements, installations.
So the number that you briefed us on would be much easier, I'm assuming, for you to complete the task and update the infrastructure and to achieve your USAFA 2050 plan without having to compete year in and year out for those dollars. Is that true?
Yes, sir. That is absolutely accurate. And the whole intent there also is not only to complete, but also to spread these projects out, to acknowledge that we built the majority of them in 11 years, and how can we spread them out into a sustainable refurb cycle so that we're, not always kicking cadets out of dorms. Over.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about curriculum and cadet wing. Is this a good time to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. General, thank you for your statements and your testimony. I had just a couple of questions on cadet, the cadet wing. There's a desire, I think, by many, it sounds like, I don't want to speak for the whole Board of Visitors here, but to increase the cadet wing to back to 4,400. My understanding is that the ability to do that, at least I talked to House Armed Services Committee staff, tell me that that's entirely under the purview of the Department of the Air Force. And there's nothing that you need from us to do that other than it's a budgetary issue. Is that correct?
Sure, I do assess that as it goes forward, and I assess that it's, and I think it's being very receptive inside the Department of the Air Force. I will say that it's more focused on, hey, what is our future growth? What is our future growth in the Air Force and Space Force, so that our growth is matched to the requirement coming from the two services that we move forward. In my assessment, if we were to grow to 4,400, it is not a facility challenge. Our facilities were built for 4,400 and change. We've even been larger than that over the years. It would require a modicum increase in O&M to support those cadets. And I think the larger would be increased personnel, and we would work through that. But on the back of the napkin math, not a manpower study, but back of the napkin math would be somewhere between 100 and 125 additional personnel, primarily focused in the Dean of Faculty and in the athletic department. Over.
And then would like to follow up on a MILCON issue. The Aero Lab I think I heard you say that that's shovel ready. If that's shovel ready, can we work with you to earmark project on that?
Absolutely, sir. I look forward to working with you on that. And to be clear, it will be FSRM O&M dollars, not MILCON. So as I understand it from my experts, so we're, like I said, we're ready to execute.
Okay. And then just a question on curriculum. I wanted to ask about history and what we're teaching as far as history as a requirement at the academy. Are we currently teaching world history or requiring that a cadet takes world history, requiring that they take American history? And then what about a constitutional class so that we all understand what we're all there for and what we're defending? Do we require that right now?
I would say yes, sir, with caveats. Let me explain what we have, and I'm going to turn it over to my expert to say that. For history, we require inside the core curriculum 2 classes, world history and military history, as those goes forward. In years past, American history was taught, but as American history was being taught at greater levels in high school, a decision to free up for other core curriculum was made, and I do not remember the year, but it's many, many years ago that decision was made. This year, at the request of Representative Bacon, we're going back and assessing, and we're actually testing all the class of 2029 that comes in and saying, okay, what is your knowledge level of American history, to assess if the high schools are all teaching it to an appropriate and common level. And then as far as our Constitution, sir, I would offer to you that that is woven through many of our core curriculum classes, from history to political science to law to philosophy. And I will turn it over to Colonel Hasted to put more amplification on that. Over.
Yes, sir. Good morning, and thank you for your time. This is Colonel Steve Hasted, the Dean of the Faculty, and just to follow up, so History 100, that's our History of Modern Warfare. This is the one of the two core for alls. History 300 is World History. Superintendent nailed it on both of those in our initial assessment of testing of our inbound, our newest sessions, is that they have a pretty, assessment is still underway, but results are pretty positive that they're coming in with a strong baseline in American history. Outside of the courses where we deliberately weave in throughout the curriculum at different levels, the context of learning about the Constitution is specific. So versus just a single course on Constitution, constitutional law, it's woven through different aspects of the curriculum throughout their years. We are also looking at and have seen some parallels with our sister service academies of incorporating more of the Constitution potentially into military training. Issuing, I think the Naval Academy issued Constitution, so all of their inbound cadets as they started basic training. So looking at some other areas there.
No, I say we did as well.
Yes, sir.
All of our cadets were issued constitutions as it goes forward. It's not only in the classroom, but it's also woven into several efforts like the commitment, the commitment dinner, the commitment to serve, the commitment walk, that the Constitution is also woven into those aspects as we go forward. And we would love to, kind of detail that for y'all and see, get your feedback and insights.
And those are definitely some best practices. I still personally have the pocket Constitution that I was issued in 1988 when I came in as a basic cadet. That's a ready reference and things that we're still perpetuating here. So, yes, sir.
Well, I thank you. And I would just, to me, that's core to why we send young men and women to the U.S. Air Force Academy. And so I'm not sure that high schools are teaching it to the level that we need it to be taught. So I would encourage us to relook that and make sure that we are teaching American history and the Constitution class. I know you're talking about weaving that in. I think that's very important, but this is instrumental and fundamental to what the Academy does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you for that feedback, sir.
Mr. Nikolai, Vice Chairman, the gift that keeps on giving, the chapel, do we have a completion date that we can nail down?
Colonel Brown.
So this is Colonel Brown here. With reference to our chapel, we have a date right now as we're tracking through the fall of 2028 at this present time. Over. Thank you.
And sir, I would like to amplify that. So at the end of the day, just to clarify the command and control, the chapel is being refurbed by Installation Management and Sustainment Command, Air Force Civil Engineering Center, with the Corps of Engineers involved in that. I'd like to report two successful aspects. One is we successfully completed water testing. That was, as many visited last time, that water test came back very positive. Still some areas to improve, but very excited to see that move forward. And then the second thing is we have started cadet tours on the weekends. And so focusing on the class of 26 so that they can start to put eyes on and see the chapel for their own eyes as it goes forward. And Colonel Alex Lillick, our A4, is working with IMSC's leader, Colonel Cooper, to make that happen as it goes forward. Over.
Copy all. So I like the improvements. You got a new project manager, or the 06 you extended, a couple lower ranking officers helping out. All very important. With the spirit of Charlie Kirk, I want to challenge you guys to finish this chapel for the graduating class of 27. So you need to move it up about 3 to 6 months. One idea is maybe when we talk to the engineers out there, they said the metal work was so complicated and sophisticated, they couldn't really surge. But my idea is, what about the lower technical work once you get inside, all the interior work, the pews, the walls, et cetera, et cetera? Can we use the one big beautiful bill funding that Secretary of the Air Force opened up for us to do a surge at the end to move this completion date up for the class of 27.
Sir, we appreciate that challenge, and we'll share that with Secretary Mink and see what options that can be brought forward. Over.
All right, I think I heard challenge accepted. That's awesome. Thank you. Hey, next question. Senior soccer cadets. So do we have an update on where they stand for graduating this year? Have you had feedback with them? How are they doing in their tasks that you asked them to proceed and complete? And if you can just give us a quick update with the senior soccer cadets. Thank you.
Sir, I would say for all of our soccer cadets associated in that situation, all are progressing well. The class 25, class 26, class of 25, or excuse me, class 25, 26, 27, and 28 are progressing well through their requirements. And yes, I have met with many of them. And what I appreciate, as with all rehabilitation pathways, is the ownership and the moving forward and the development of it goes forward. And of the 9, I believe we have 4 going into pilot training, 2 going into Space Force, and 2 becoming developmental engineers. As it goes forward, I'm missing the 5 into pilot training, 2 developmental engineers, 2 Space Force, and all are excited to start their journeys in the Air Force and Space Force. I will also say that I'm very proud of the new men's soccer coach that has come in. I really like the culture and focus on teamwork that he has brought forward. And, as they went through a growing season as it leaned into it. And also the youngest members who were subjected through that situation, they are also growing well and demonstrating well on the team as we go forward. Hope that gives you a good update, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Superintendent, it's Representative Crank again. Just one other question I wanted to talk to you, and you and I have had great discussion about this, and you were very open, and I brought a group of community leaders over to discuss the issue of the visitor center and the opening of the visitor center. I know that we are now scheduled to open it, I believe, in May of this year. And as I mentioned at that meeting, I think a lot of members of the community expressed concern because that project was a bonded project. We're probably either going to have to renegotiate the repayment schedule of that, or it potentially will default because the repayment of those bonds is dependent upon other businesses being able to move into some of the bonded area. We haven't been able to do that because we don't have that visitor center open. I just, again, wanted to just mention this at this meeting, just the importance of getting that done. The state of Colorado, the community, and several wonderful members of our community, some of which are even here, have contributed quite a bit to that facility and, again, gifted it to the Academy. I just want to make sure that we are back on track on that and we're headed towards that opening, and for the Air Force to make sure that what we put in there is going to help us drive young people as they drive down and see that beautiful Academy. They stop at the visitor center. I would like us to see interactive displays and other things for them to work at and become totally committed to attending. And I want young kids to go into that facility and look at it and say, you know what, I want to go to this U.S. Air Force Academy. That's the purpose of that visitor center. And I want to make sure we're headed that way. General, thank you.
No, sir, Representative Crank, I think we're absolutely on target, and we're also meeting all the requirements that we have as a government facility as it moves forward. 15 May is the date. Right now, all indicators are positive. There was a couple of days, depending on how long the shutdown was going to go, if that would slow us down, but we didn't even think that was going to slow us down. And thankfully, that was only a couple of days as it moves forward. I was just in it with the team again about a week ago, and it's progressing along very nicely to even include potential other benefactors that will help expand the experience inside the visitor center. If you're amenable, sir, I'd also like to reach out to your office because we're now putting together the opening ceremony on the 15th, and we kind of want to bring it strong. And so, having, as we look forward to that, who are the right folks to bring to bear, acknowledging America's 250th, Colorado's 150th, governor interest, your interest, how do we do this and kind of open it up right? And so that'll be the 15th, and then on the 28th, there'll be more parents in there and you can shake a stick at. Over.
That'd be great, General. Thank you.
General Bauerfein, your fan, Dan Clark, thanks for all you're doing. I know you appreciate my frankness and I appreciate your frankness. I want to follow up question with Stoli about these soccer cadets. As an All-American athlete, as a coach, as a teammate, and especially as a dad, you've heard me quote one of my favorite slogans, discipline is to teach, not to punish. May I just use a sales example? How many times does a sales professional sit down to make a presentation with their laptop and they continually sell past the close? Somebody's ready to sign the contract and they look at the person on the other side of their laptop and say, wait a minute, I've got 16 more slides, sit down and shut up and let me just finish my presentation, instead of pulling the trigger when it's time to have them sign the contract. With that preamble, is there a way that we could allow these seniors to graduate, that you could forego the remaining 5 or whatever months left on their probation and understand that enough is enough, lesson has been taught, they will be such amazing leaders and officers with so much more empathy in their ability to lead? I wouldn't be sitting here if I hadn't been given a second chance, especially because I learned the lesson. Could we put you on the spot and see if there's any way that we could ask for you to suspend those last 5 months? Is that even a possibility? And that's it. I have a follow-up question in a minute. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Clark, I will say that with all, so I appreciate that. So at the end of the day, I don't allow anything. They earn it as it goes forward in this construct. And I can attest to you that I've met with these young men. I've met with their commanders as it goes forward. And it has been positive to see the growth as this goes forward. The 5 months is a little off. I think we're, as we kind of go through that, as we go through this conversation. But I will tell you that commanders involved are assessing their growth. And I can report back to you that all indications are positive. And I'm not trying to be snarky about the allowing, but it's the seeing the young men, not just the seniors, but also the juniors, the sophomores, all that were involved, all of their growth as that goes forward. And I can tell you, just recently sitting down with their squadron commanders and their academy military trainers, that it is a positive pathway over. And again, I didn't mean, as reflecting on my words, I'm not intending to be snarky. It's just that it's a pathway that folks are going through. And for those folks that meet the pathway, it's not just checking a box, but rehabilitating. And when they meet that point, then we're ready to move forward, as you've said. Over.
Senator Budd.
Thank you, Congressman. So reading through as the new guy, some of the letters was coming across the term Silver Training Weekend. So could you explain to me what the Silver Training Weekend and what military training does the Cadet Wing program perform during those weekends?
Yes, I'll turn it over to General Marks. And it's the whole of the installation that supports those Silver Weekends. But General Marks, please, over to you.
Sir, good afternoon. This is General Gavin Marks, the Commandant of Cadets. A Silver Weekend is a weekend that we set aside during the calendar month where the Cadet Wing participates in military training. Typically, it starts at last class or Friday and goes through the evening time of Saturday. The type of military training that takes place could be anything from academic instruction delivered via cadet instructors to tactile level instruction, i.e. land navigation or tactical combat casualty care. It really just depends on what the squadron needs at the time, their training syllabus, and what their goals are for the semester.
Also adding to that, it's not, I mean, there's a wide variety of military training, employing tactical radios, employing small unmanned aerial systems. And we've also got, at that time, we're working closely with our intercollegiate teams to make sure that we're doing this in the right way and not impacting intercollegiate practices, as well as the airmanship program as it goes forward. And then also that time to get on the weapons range. So that is a continual growing, it's a time that up front, we were not conducting the military training year round as required. And that is our approach to address that military training. Over.
Thank you.
General, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion. I think it's very, very important for all of us to ask these questions and to get a picture. And I would stress the desire here for continued advocacy from you and your staff to us on the priorities, and especially as they relate to funding, knowing that the cycle for both the NDAA and the appropriations that will come up in this fiscal year are already underway, and time is definitely of the essence. So any and all of those recommendations and asks to this board, please continue to do those. So we will take.
If I may jump in just to clarify.
General, go ahead.
Hey, sir, I just wanted to reinforce that, sir. We will absolutely do that. I just want to reinforce so you hear it from me. Our number one would be getting USAFA 2050 started. Our number two would be growing our airmanship program to airmanship for all. This is beneficial. And then number three would be the consideration of the cadet wing growth. Acknowledging that many of those are likely, I have not gotten validation of those, but those are the three I think will move the needle the most as it goes forward. Over.
Thank you for that. We appreciate that. We'll take a 10-minute break, reconvene here at 1:45 Eastern, and we're a few minutes behind, but we'll catch up with the next agenda items. Do this as quickly as we can. We've had some discussions on this already, but we're going to talk about the working groups that have been established. That is a merit-based admissions working group, accreditation working group, AI working group, athletics, infrastructure, and a new group that we have voted on today that will examine some of the disciplinary procedures. So we're going to I'll ask our board members to give us a way forward on each of those working groups. We've assigned board members to each of these. The intent here is, again, to advocate for the things that make the academy better. We've heard a lot on resources. We'll continue to hear some more of those, but we're thinking creatively on what we can do as a board to ask the right questions, to leverage industry partners, to help the Secretary of War, the Secretary of the Air Force, to truly max perform this institution. So why don't we start with Congressman Bacon and Mr. Clark, and I'd ask you about a minute or so, give us some of the goals and the objectives of what this working group is for merit-based admissions.
Thank you, Congressman Pfluger. Honored to work hand in glove with Congressman Bacon. He's got years of experience. You look phenomenal for being 113 years of age. As far as admissions, the amalgamation of the admissions and merit-based focus that we need to take to clean up whatever's broken fits perfectly with the idea of admissions-based, merit-based when it comes to athletes. And I don't want to take anything away from Congressman Bacon, but he suggested that as we were talking about the point totals assessed to SAT scores, grade point average, that we could also throw in there the value of being an Eagle Scout, the value of 100 hours of community service or whatever. So my question will come back. I'll take the microphone when we talk a little bit more specifically about athletics, but I'll just refer to you, Congressman Bacon, to talk a little bit more about admissions, if you will.
Thank you. The concern was over like a year ago that the DEI spectrum swung too far to the left, not just with the military academies, but in many different areas. But what I saw on the Armed Services Committee this past year was maybe an overcorrection where there was a push to go strictly on test scores. And I don't think that that's merit-based enough. I mean, like Dan just said, you have Eagle Scouts coming. That's a merit, something to look at. Or if you're a captain of a football team or a basketball team, I think you can gauge leadership more than just test scores, was my point. So I just want to make sure we find that sweet spot in the middle.
And remember, a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. If that's not leadership 101, I don't know what is. That's merit-based, baby. That's merit-based.
I think you missed one.
No way.
The goal is to ask questions, to collaborate on ideas, to work with the academy, and to eventually make recommendations of things that can make it better. And these are recommendations based on a lot of experience here. We'll go to the Vice Chairman, Mr. Nikolai, for the accreditation working group.
So we stood up the accreditation working group after last meeting, had a group of academic experts looking at the possibility of switching academic accreditation agencies for not just the Air Force Academy, but West Point and Annapolis as well. And we wrote up a paper, sent that to the superintendent along to the undersecretaries of the Air Force. They had a meeting a few weeks ago, and they are debating the pros and cons and gathering more information. So this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to transition to a newly formed Commission of Public Higher Education. And it's dedicated to the transparent accreditation standards that we're used to, and that would fit very well with our service academies. So looks like we have some momentum building that way, and we'll keep you posted as we proceed.
Thank you very much. Proud to have Artificial Intelligence Working Group led by Ms. Dina Powell, Congressman Don Davis, and Senator Budd. Ms. Powell.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Representative, and I'm so excited to join Congressman Davis and Senator Budd. We are looking at 3 tracks in our working group. The first is a review of how AI is being integrated in the curriculum and how the major platforms are being used, frankly, across the board, from the coding ones to the LLMs to infrastructure ones. I think they're really vital that they are infused in what the Academy is teaching in today's world, and particularly, frankly, in the next 3 years, as we think about the edge that AI gives in national security. The second is something we're going to explore more deeply with the superintendent around internships or secondments at some of the AI companies. I've already started to talk to some of them, and there's a lot of interest in having Academy students come and join these different teams for short periods of time to really get on the ground training, if you will. And finally, just understanding where the policy world of AI is going, whether it's the bipartisan commission that was just started in the House, or of course, the president's AI strategy, because I think that's going to be critical too. So those are the 3 areas we're focused on. I'm excited to work with Senator Budd and Congressman Davis, and we'd really welcome any ideas and thoughts.
Congressman Davis, any updates or additions to that? Thank you, Ms. Powell. And Senator Budd also wanted to join this, as a new member, wanted to join this working group. So thank you. That's great. Senator Tuberville, I think, has stepped out for votes, but let's go to Mr. Clark again for athletics.
We're so fortunate to have Senator Tuberville in charge and running this focus group. Google him. He has every credential you can imagine as being a championship winning coach and, more importantly, a character development expert for young men. In his absence, we put together a 3-page document. I've had an opportunity to interact with Nate Pine, one of the finest athletic directors in the entire world. There are people on Mars wishing that he could sign a lucrative contract up there to help them develop people. Jen and Nancy also, and Mark Hilly, who's at the in charge of all of our dreams coming true. Let me, in the essence of time management, may I just read a couple of quick paragraphs that Nate Pine helped me put together, and then a question that I have personally for the superintendent and for anyone else involved in the decision-making process. I want to emphasize the football influence on recruiting. With all due respect to all the other sports, the most visible, obviously, is football. And that's why we're focusing right now just on this conversation with the football. Yes, applications to the United States Air Force Academy significantly increased following highly successful football seasons, such as in 1985, when the team finished 12-1 and ranked number 5. High-profile, successful seasons often boost interest and prestige for the Academy's overall applicant pool. Key findings on the Air Force football and admissions in 1985, success. After the 1985 season, where Coach Fisher DeBerry led the team to a 12-1 record, the Academy saw an increase in interest. And let me just share a very powerful statistic. Admission data. The Academy generally remains extremely selective, with a 13.9% acceptance rate and about 11,500 students applying for roughly 1,400 spots annually. But let me reiterate, the surge in applications is often linked to the increased publicity surrounding major bowl game appearances and the national high ranking. And as I discussed this with Athletic Director Nate Pine, he pointed out the following. Looking at the last 3 graduating classes, 2025, 2024, and 2023, we brought in an average of 85 football recruits per year. Approximately 37% stayed on the football team all 4 years and graduated 31 cadets on average per year. Of those that leave the football team, approximately 44% stay at USAFA and graduate 24 cadets on average. And we can make these other statistics that break down class of 2026, class of 2027, class of 2028 and 29 available. We can put those on the post. But let me conclude just with these additional considerations. Most attrition from USAFA occurs during sophomore year. That might be something to consider, that instead of allowing them to leave after the sophomore year, maybe we give them the opportunity to leave after their freshman year. That might change the attrition rate. Number 2, the Air Force football team consistently ranks among the top in the nation for the NCAA academic progress rate, APR, often in the top 10 nationally and leading the Mountain West Conference, with recent scores around 992 for 2023-2024 data, reflecting strong academic success and student athlete retention. Number 3, while football athletes do attrit at a higher rate than their classmates, many often have other institutions recruiting them. That's our NIL challenge. Others who don't find playing time at the Air Force Academy will transfer to other FBS, FCS, and Division II institutions in order to find opportunities. And lastly, number 4, all 3 service academies are working through the new admissions guidance. As I promised, it works hand in glove with admissions and merit-based. This is a good question for Board of Visitors members to have an open item to study how each athletic department is approaching the new guidance, so that we're in comparable contrast with the other 2 service academies, Annapolis and West Point. And here's my own self-inflicted question. Are the special considerations for athletes with exceptional athleticism and extraordinary leadership qualities and honed critical thinking skills, who may be under the academic requirements in GPA, and SAT scores, the same as West Point and Annapolis as they are at USAFA? We are competing for the same top athletes, and the admissions criterion and offer to receive a USAFA appointment to play ball must be the same as Annapolis and West Point. So my question is the current requirement at USAFA from the SUP's office or whomever's in charge, are we allowed to compete against West Point and Annapolis for the same top high quality athletes, especially football players, or are West Point and Annapolis working at a lower standard performance, which isn't the way I wanted to go with this conversation? Are they giving a different point total in the aggregate amount of points assessed to an athlete who has extraordinary leadership, extraordinary athleticism, and therefore they can get in even though they have a lower GPA and a lower SAT scores? And if not, I think we should be comparable and draw a parity with the other two academies so that we don't keep losing to them as a football team, and we can beat them at every level for every reason, according to August Pfluger's desire for us to dominate the service academies. I yield.
Thank you for studying that exact problem. We've got infrastructure, which myself and Representative Crank are on. I'll yield to you, Jeff.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, the superintendent did a good job of outlining what is needed, and it's a gargantuan task. But I think, and you shared this, that we want to get an actual section in the NDAA. The administration's commitment is important to make sure that we're investing in the recapitalization of the U.S. Air Force Academy in the way that we need to moving forward. And I think it's important, and as I alluded to before, that we find innovative ways to do this, working with partners, working perhaps with the foundation as well, and looking at new ways to do this so that maybe we can even bring that number down very significantly so that it isn't what I think it was over $3 billion to do it in $340 million annually. We can probably do it for less than that if we bring in some new ideas and some new ways of thinking. So I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. And we'll go to Mr. Nikolai for the newly formed working group on disciplinary issues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we had a pre-meeting discussion about some of the disciplinary processes at the Air Force Academy. Sometimes it looked like there is a lack of due process. So we're looking into that. And I'm also coordinating with my fellow board members on the Navy board, as well as the West Point Board of Visitors, to look at their processes as well and see if we need to elevate the discussion up to a Secretary of War level to have a kind of a trilat as we look into this. Thank you.
Thank you. In our request from the Department of the Air Forces, as phrased earlier, for support on these working groups to include bringing in outside expertise. And I think the Secretary gave us a pretty good approval by saying press forward. So that'll be the expectation, and from the board members to come prepared in our next meeting, which will be a virtual meeting in May or June, with what the initial findings are and some initial recommendations so that we can get that into a report. We can start to build the tools needed and resources if that's a factor as well. I will turn it over to Dr. Rimpola, and was remiss in not thanking you earlier for you and your staff's work to accommodate the meeting and set this up. Thank you for that. And we appreciate the ability to convene in person here.
So I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Gagne for the action item, sir.
Good afternoon, Congressman Pfluger. Good afternoon, board members. We're going to do a quick action item review. The 3 action items that are currently open are before you. We had an update on the Space Education Center and on the BOSI USAFA items earlier during the meeting. And I'm going to turn it over to USAFA to go through the military professor copyrights issue.
Hey, Representative Pfluger, the big item there, slide please, or actually I've got the clicker. Oh, no, we don't. Okay, big thing is the FY25 NDA proposal that I understand came through the House but did not survive the Senate. USAFA is in support of. just to marry the military professor to the civilian professor copyright authority. And from a USAFA perspective, I think the only lever we have is to indicate support. I feel like this is a legislative action. Over.
Pipe in. It's Don Bacon. So we didn't get it out of the House. We didn't get it through the Senate. There's this particular Senate staffer who I don't think understands this issue or thinks it's going to help military people get money or something. I don't know. But now we have firepower. We have 3 or 4 senators on this board. I've engaged each one. They're going to help us get this done this coming year. So well, maybe we'll put this one to rest after this year. We still need to keep it open until then.
Thank you for that. And thank you for, I mean, that's exactly why this board is important to take action on issues that are affecting the dean and the faculty. So thank you for that, Congressman Bacon. Any further discussion on these items? I feel like we had a very robust discussion on the first and the third.
I'll just make a motion that we keep them open.
Is there a second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We will keep these open. And just for the record, we closed a tremendous amount of open items that had been stagnant for several years in the last meeting. So this should be a highlight of top level issues that we can tackle.
Representative Pfluger,
at this point-
General Bauerfein.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to jump in, but I would request 2 things for your board's consideration. As we talk about those priorities we listed out, 2050, airmanship, wing growth, are those actions or, because we're working those with the Department of Air Force. And then a second request is if we could combine the Space Education Center into, USAFA 2050 is now what we're kind of banding around for both the development of the Space Education Center and the installation modernization and sustainment. So if we could adjust that, I would appreciate that. Over.
Is there any discussion from the board on that recommendation that would be contrary? Go ahead.
I don't think it's contrary, but I mean, unless the board disagrees, I would probably agree that we should add those as open items.
Okay.
Mr. Crank's disagreement with it. I think we should go with the recommendation.
Everybody loves bacon.
General, that's a good recommendation. We'll press ahead with those and include those in the next meeting. Thank you for that. Any from USAFA, any other comments? It's now time in our meeting for public comment. We appreciate a number of comments that have come forward. We do have some that are in person to be delivered. I would ask that you keep it to 2 minutes. We do not have a timer here, but please summarize in 2 minutes so we can keep our meeting going on. We do have your written comments, and that's very helpful as well. But in the interest of time, as our board members are here on the clock, we'd ask you to keep it to 2 minutes. Dr. Impala.
Yes, sir. So we have received 15 comments from the public. You all have copies of it, and they're all organized based on themes. We're going to start with Lieutenant Colonel Mark Clodfelter, retired. He presented a video for us, so we will be watching his 1-minute video, sir, on curriculum.
And thanks for allowing me to address you virtually. I'm Mark Clodfelter, a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and member of the class of '77. During my Air Force career, I twice taught history at the Academy, was one of the founding professors at the School of Advanced Air and Space Studies, directed the Air Force ROTC detachment at the University of North Carolina, and taught strategy and policy at the National War College. You have my written comments regarding the Academy's current academic core curriculum, to include a copy of my recent article in the Air Force's leading professional journal, Air and Space Power Operations. Let me say that I'm very pleased that the Academy has undergone or is undergoing a curriculum review. In that regard, let me amplify my argument that USAFA needs more humanities courses. Specifically, it needs 3 courses in the core that are history courses. American, world, and military. All three are essential because our graduates need a background in their nation's past, a fundamental knowledge of how history has affected enemies and allies alike, and a sound comprehension of how the profession of arms has developed. Other departments cannot provide this vital foundation because they do not have the subject matter expertise. Since my recent article, I've heard from many grads who say they agree with my assessment. At this meeting, I'm now eager to hear the views of board members on this important topic. Thank you.
So we have some comments on resources. I'd like to welcome Mr. Zachary Miller to the microphone in the room.
Thank you. My name is Zach Miller. I'm a class of 2004 graduate from the Air Force Academy, ready for war. I don't think I have any other classmates here, but once the dean gets here, Novelpi and I are classmates. I remember Russian class back in the day. That being said, my question is both to bring awareness, and I think everyone's trying to move the ball down the field, but with the chapel, my specific question is, what can I, as a community member, I live in the greater Colorado Springs area, love living there, love seeing the chapel, but it's actually sad to me and to the community that there is still, even in the 2050 slide, there's still the container around the chapel. And so it's almost gotten where we're almost too comfortable with it. And so what I would like to propose or ask is, as a member of the community, what can we do to help the chapel be restored so that worship and marriages and all the different things that have occurred there can happen again? I would like to propose an idea that you as the board, or potentially through the superintendent's office, that we put out a creative idea to surge and basically recruit skilled workers from across the United States to come and help us complete this project. It actually might even be able to lead into the further infrastructure things. But if we can make this a national cause, it's a good news story. I don't think it's not one of those super controversial things of just, but if we could put something out, utilize, I don't know which even type of strategic communications we could do, but get the word out there that if you can work with glass, please come work. If you can work with metal, and if we could basically have a grassroots effort that would be supported by the board in coordination, maybe potentially even with the AOG, and this is more proposal, but also a question, what can I do as a citizen to help this chapel get done?
Well, I'll field the first response. Thank you. And then I was remiss in the response to the first point. I'll go to Representative Bacon for that. But this is exactly why this board convened in August of last year in Colorado Springs in person, why we did go through and get a tour of the chapel, why the President of the United States that night was made aware of this exact issue. So you're doing your part as a citizen right now by speaking on this issue. So that's, I think, a very important aspect of this. And I really like your recommendation. So we will talk amongst the board members in our draft of a recommendation to the Secretary of War. But I think you're going to get some support on this particular point from this board. So let us take it for action. And when we release our report, please read through it to see what we've done. But I can also promise you that in the past 7 to 8 months that we have taken this very seriously, and that everybody in the Department of War and up to and including the President of the United States is very aware of this issue. And as you heard earlier from one of our board members, we want to see this project not finished in 28, but well ahead of that. So,
and thank you guys. Thank you all for what you guys have done for that.
Thank you.
It matters to the community.
Thank you very much. Representative Bacon, let me yield to you for response to the video.
Dr. Claude Felter is a good friend of mine. In fact, he was my professor at National War College. We traveled to Russia together as part of the National War College overseas trip. And I personally like his proposal, but I happen to like history. It's my favorite topic to read. But it seems to me it's hard to be a great leader or a strategist in the military unless you have an understanding of world history, American history, particularly American history, which I think was just added recently as core curriculum, and military history. I know the challenges, and I've talked to the superintendent. There's a full bucket right now for all these students, and so what do you take out? And I think that's the cost. Figure out what can be removed to add this. But I personally like the thought that good officers need to understand history. So with that, I appreciate Dr. Clodfelter's input.
We have our next comment from Professor Thomas Bewley on the subject of resources.
Hello, audio check. Can you hear? Sorry, audio check. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay, thank you. So regarding the opening remarks, the BoV is not an advocacy group. Rather, the BoV is directly charged with inquiring and overseeing specific matters at USAFA, including morale, curriculum, and instruction. As such, this BoV must address the Deox bloodbath that happened in October, as reported in detail by an investigative reporter at KOAA. This survey quantified the sharp decline in DF personnel overall by 136 people, which is over 15% year over year as of last October. And this survey also quantified the concomitant sharp decline in morale in DF as reported by KOAA. These declines continue today, and many departures are scheduled to continue throughout this semester. If these DX results are not addressed here by the BoV, I really don't know what we're doing. They're not what was previously characterized when discussing the related HLC investigation as misinformation. These numbers are straight from DF via DoD. If the superintendent of the Air Force Academy had come to BoV last April and said that he planned to eliminate 60% of the faculty in certain military relevant majors like MEC over the next 1.5 years, all y'all in BoV would have sharply pushed back. The fact that this has happened accidentally as a result of untargeted reduction in force policies is no consolation. We are losing the best of the best in DF first, incentivizing those military-minded instructors with options elsewhere to leave early and burning bridges with them in the process so we won't get them back. Also, word is out in the active duty corps, and it appears that replacement of these talented instructors is nearly impossible. The question of how to rebuild DF after this RIF is finished is a quagmire. Of our 6 engineering department heads, no less than 4 of them have suddenly left, well before their 10-year marks. Why? Not only is this significantly damaging the continuity of our academic programs, but I think it's indicative of a larger systematic problem. Why are 7 of our most senior instructors in Astro suddenly and simultaneously leaving this year? And how do we maintain our commitment to space-mindedness and our support of the Space Force in light of this? Further, losing technical staff, which can't be replaced due to hiring freezes, means we're retraining our young captains to take care of teaching labs and shops, which notably has a substantial negative impact on safety, as well as pulling these captains away from their job as instructors, compounding the ongoing difficulties in DF. I have made some specific requests at the last couple of BoV meetings that have gone almost entirely unanswered. Time permitting, I'm going to briefly repeat them here. Number 1, we desperately need an accurate report on how many civilian and active duty instructors there are in each individual academic department, last year, now, and next year, and with what degrees and what levels of military and teaching experience. We are finally just beginning to see the full scope of the decimation now happening in DF. We need to know who is left so we can figure out what can still be rebuilt of what we had before, majors minus focus areas and core classes, and what should just be eliminated. Something has to give. Transparency is needed to plan. The question of, second thing is the question of whether or not NDAs are being used to conceal the deliberation of how to handle the ongoing rift of experienced faculty in DF has thus far, as far as I know, gone unanswered. The use of NDAs in this setting is strictly disallowed by DoD policy and demands scrutiny. Notwithstanding earlier statements that academic...
Sir, I would ask you to please summarize, if you may, the remaining points.
Okay, thank you. Okay, third point. We have for months been requesting to reinstate education in the mission statement. Please do that. It is symbolic. Fourth point, notwithstanding leadership changes that have recently been announced and further changes that have been rumored, for the purpose of long-term academic continuity, I believe we must commit to convert the 2-star vice superintendent position to that of a long-term civilian provost, akin to the provost position at AFIT and other acquisitions offices. And finally, we should remove entirely the question, does content address DEI gender official DOW positions or policy from the request for presentation approval form unveiled on November 17th, focusing on DEI as a distraction. We need to get back to critical military thinking. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Sure, we have one more comment on morale. I'd like to welcome Mr. Kent Murphy, also a virtual participant.
Okay. I just hit Alt A. Do you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to actually cut mine in half in the interest of time and the fact that Dr. Bewley has brought forth a lot of good points. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Congressman Pfluger and to the board. We have a level of transparency now with the board and with public attendance and opportunity for comment that hasn't been part of this before. And so I really have strong hopes that this board is going to be different from what we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years. I love the working groups, and I'm especially thankful for the manpower audit. It's a big deal. Senior leadership showed 16 faculty lost. The DOC survey says 136. Now that's faculty, mission critical support staff, and I don't know, maybe some other positions. But here's the thing. It looks great right now as we just cross over into 2026. But a lot of the changes that have happened since last April are going to manifest themselves in this year and especially in 27. So we're already seeing some consequences. We're seeing class sizes ballooning. We're seeing increasing strain in the STEM departments as we lose people, and other people, many of them junior, have to step in and take on these, advanced classes. And we actually have lost a focus group of a systems engineering major, and that's a bellwether for us. That's what we produce, and we are losing them. So the comment that we haven't lost anything and we're not going to be slated to lose anything, those things are, first of all, it's not true as of right now. And I don't think that forecast really can be applied to 27 and 28. So the faculty have been systematically intimidated into silence. I know that. I've spoken with many of them. And I just quietly had my position as a senior pre-med advisor revoked for, I think, ostensibly for being public about my criticisms, but we have a different system here at the Academy. And I hope that Mr. Nikolai will stay in the loop. I'd like to share some things with him, but the 1,000 universities that are accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, that's everybody. That's like Ohio State, that's West or Notre Dame, et cetera. They have shared governance. If what is going on here at the Academy were to go on in one of those schools, there'd be a mass revolt. The HLC complaints, 5 of them that were filed, were not frivolous. And I've heard that another's on the way. And it's not just coming from me. I mean, there are many people involved in this effort.
Sir, if we could just, apologies, sir.
Let me just finish quickly.
Summarize, thank you.
Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry. So I really do think that something is going on that is not healthy for us if we want to graduate the tech savvy, people that the Air Force needs and the Space Force needs. So I'm going to ask the board to really dig into this. Everything looked rosy on the slides. I promise you it won't be rosy 6 to 12 months from now if you guys don't investigate and then make appropriate recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to both that comment and the previous comment, a couple of things. Number one, we've been informed by the Department of the Air Force that some of the information that was released was not final information, that specifically on the DOCS issue will eventually be released for public release and into the board. Secondly, we have focused on this issue. We've asked questions about the composition of the faculty. We will continue to look at the end strength of both the cadet wing and the faculty. And I think that these are very important issues, and we hear you, and that's exactly why these public comments are important.
Thank you.
Finished with the public comments, sir. Over to the board member comments.
We're at a point to have a good of the order discussion before we start to conclude. So I'd ask those remaining board members for any sort of comments that have not been touched on. Representative Bacon.
No, I appreciate the good board meeting. And one of the key things is on those open action items, we'll work hard to put NDA, the copyright stuff, and maybe we'll work on the funding issues for infrastructure. I just want as a reminder for the leadership team at the Air Force Academy, if you see issues that we need to settle with the NDA, let us know, because that's what we're here for. I mean, I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and so is Mr. Crank, and we like solving problems. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Dan Clark here. I just want to assure everyone in the public and everyone at USAFA that we are here, as Congressman Bacon just alluded to, we're here for you, we're listening, and we are taking action under Congressman Pfluger's direction and Stoli as the vice chair. We stay up at night, we talk on the phone, we don't just gather together twice a year or once a year. This is a constant 24/7 concern to help make USAFA the greatest institution of higher learning in the country, not just a service academy. So I guarantee we are a board of action, and with Pfluger and Stoli's encouragement, we will do exactly what we need to do to make it everything it has the potential to be.
Mr. Nikolai.
Yes, Mr. Nikolai, Vice Chairman. So, Dr. Booley, we hear you. I know this is your third time around addressing the faculty issue, and I agree. Before I break some glass here and talk about the academics at the Air Force Academy, I want to give a shout out to Colonel Steve Hedstedt, the acting dean. If you didn't know this, he's a record center. He's the longest acting dean in Air Force Academy history, and he's done a great job minding the ship between deans. And Steve, I just want to say thanks for all your efforts. So, all right, with that said, I believe the academics at the academy is at a tipping point, and I think the model has lost its way, and we need to transform this. And I think we're at the perfect fork in the road, if you will. We have the new dean, we have these faculty issues going on, and I think that turbulence is when you can remold something that has a problem into something greater. So with that said, I think just like the chapel completion date, I think we can do so much better. All right. So Secretary Mink mentioned we need to have the mental flexibility in these chaotic and ever-changing, hyper-changing time. And I think we need to model our academic core courses as well as remodeling the whole structure to be able to keep pace with those threats. So as everyone knows, you don't bring a problem without a solution. So here's kind of some of my ideas that I'll pitch, and then I'm gonna, for the record, follow these up with questions for the record in a more elegant format that I'll submit to the board. So first of all, we need to intentionally forge citizens, leaders, warriors, and scholars, okay, who can win in modern combat. So one of these things, I want to establish a school of civic thought, and that's around civic Western values, the Constitution, Congressman Crank mentioned, along with the history, and to emphasize those cultural heritage and the American exceptionalism. So to remind everyone, to paraphrase Charlie Kirk, he said cadets must understand American exceptionalism, because if we're asking them to give their last full measure of devotion, then they must passionately believe that our country and ideals are worth dying for. All right, so that's kind of the bedrock. We need to cement this, a new change around. Then STEM's mentioned, it's very important. Secretary Mink mentioned that, and we need to integrate that with the challenges of AI and machine learning. But instead of having stovepipes in each physics, chemistry, computer science, I think if we combine that in a year-long course into a single multidisciplinary course, and you see how they play off each other, my favorite word, synergy for the Air Force, and we can really make big progress there. And then we have to weave AI, machine learning in every facet at the Air Force Academy. That's been mentioned before. And if we don't, we're going to fall behind. It's been said over and over. If whoever wins the AI war is going to win the war. All right. After that, we want to develop a multi-domain warfighting course. I think we're well on the way with the multi-domain lab as well as the future conflict. Kudos on that effort. And we want to be focused on mission driven. Okay, so we need to not only identify the why, but it's the who, the warriors, the means, that's the academic expertise, and the ways, and that's our airspace and cyber mindedness. And finally, I think the biggest one, we need to exact structural reforms for enduring change. Okay, so I'm looking at the Naval Academy, and I believe the Coast Guard Academy. They have a provost, and this is kind of the modern structure now of a lot of universities. They have a provost over the entire academic, and then you have schools underneath them. So I say we stand up 5 interdisciplinary schools, and we put deans under there, and that way we cut down the number of permanent professors in the governance of the institution, and we free them up to actually do their job in the true expertise of their academic prowess. So I think I'm going to challenge the new dean to figure this all out. And like I said, I'll submit questions for the record in more eloquent format. And bottom line here I got written out is the current strategic environment demands this transformation. However, there will be resistance as people don't necessarily fear change, but they fear loss, right? They fear loss of power, prestige, and influence. But we must move forward together, do what's best for the big picture of Air Force and our Air Force Academy. We want to fashion those officers with the wisdom and competence to lead, excel in this hyper-changing world in which they reside. Thank you. I yield to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nikolai. Representative Crank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And I think it's an incredible shift, and it's been mentioned here in the governance of this board. And I want to thank you for your leadership on that. It's been driven by you. And I greatly appreciate that. And I look forward to it. We talked about some of the great challenges that the U.S. Air Force Academy faces, the infrastructure challenges. Not since the Academy was built has it faced this kind of an infrastructure, I won't say crisis, but very close to crisis. So we're going to have to do investment like has never been done before since its inception. I mentioned the visitor center and the great opportunity that lies with that, and recruiting folks who drive by on I-25 and see that visitor center and stop and become inspired. The cadet wing size, there's so many other things. The good news is that we imagine being at a university and having a board or an oversight board at a university that actually had members of that board that could help you in a way that the U.S. Air Force Academy has here. I mean, you know, we've got folks here in Congress who can get things done, and it's sort of an ask and you shall receive. And it seems like we haven't done a good job of that in the past of sort of interacting and asking for those things. But, you know, as was mentioned by Congressman Bacon, he and I serve on the House Armed Services Committee. You're a very influential member of Congress, Mr. Chairman. We can get this done. And we can, that's the good news, is that we have the ability to do that. And so the last thing I would say is to what Stoli said, this is the most, we're right now in the most exceptional building in the most exceptional country in the world. And we need to instill that in the men and women who go through the United States Air Force Academy so that they know what they are fighting for, because they're fighting for the greatest country on the face of the earth. And more importantly, they're fighting for those ideals that are embodied in that Constitution. We need to teach that to them so that they are inspired more so than even the average American. And with that, thank you.
For Representative Davis or Mrs. Powell, I'll yield to you for any closing comments if you have any or thoughts. I want to thank the Department of the Air Force, Dr. Rimpola, your whole team for putting together a great meeting, affording us the opportunity to come together in person to discuss these issues, to hear public comment, to open and close action items, and to fulfill the duties of this board, which we are very familiar with what is included in that, and the responsibility is taken very seriously. The time that our board members spend, not just at these meetings, but in preparation for them is incredible, but we don't do that without the support of the department. So thank you for that. It was an honor to have the secretary here with us today to open up this meeting and to give credence to the institution that does set the standard for all the other commissioning sources out there. And I appreciate what Secretary Mink and Undersecretary Lohmeyer are doing on a daily basis to make sure that our airmen and our guardians have the resources that they need to carry out the missions that this country requires of them. This is not just lip service, it's also personal, because I was there. And I've got a lot of those stories, but they would make me sound like a little bit of a has-been. So I'll focus on the present and the future. And when we think back to just this year, I want to reiterate how air and space power has been used effectively as the tool of choice, as the tool to achieve those strategic effects that have changed, in many cases, the geopolitics of this world. Air power was the choice. Air power met the need. Air power met the moment. Space power enabled it and met the moment. And that is a testament to what General Bauernfein and the entire staff and faculty at the Air Force Academy do on a daily basis, preparing our warriors to meet challenges that we don't know right now what they will be, but we know they will exist. So the hard questions that we are asking, the recommendations that we are making, the comments that we are receiving, which, by the way, is a new thing under this board, to have public comments made for the transparency piece. And even if we don't all agree on each of the individual issues, I think we can agree that it's important to have the stakeholders, those that attended, those that care about the academy, those that are elected, and anyone else who cares about these issues, to have their voices heard. So I want to say thank you to those that did give public comment. Getting 15 comments and having some of them said in person is very important. We are at a critical juncture, whether it's infrastructure, the evolving threat landscape, the funding, the shortage of funds, the fight over which departments are going to get those funds. We are at a critical juncture, and the Air Force Academy sits right there at a nexus of needing resources in order to achieve its mission. And what our commitment on this board is to continue to hone in and refine to comply with our statutory responsibilities in order to advocate for the right things. So I'm very pleased to once again have been joined by 3 new board members: Senator Budd from North Carolina, Senator Mullen from Oklahoma, and Senator Kramer from North Dakota. All 3 of those gentlemen passionate about the defense of our country, but passionate about air and space power. And they have already added value to the discussions of this meeting, and I know going forward will continue to add value. So It's been an honor to have this this meeting here in Washington, D.C. We will look forward to convening a virtual meeting. For those that are not aware, we have 4 meetings a year. 2 of them are virtual, which we will discuss the proposed report that comes from the in-person meetings, this being one of them, and then in the fall meeting in Colorado Springs. So General Bauernfein, thank you for the work that you and your team do, for putting your heart and soul into crafting our warriors who will meet the need, that will defend our nation, that will one day be doing the things that we just saw over the past couple of months, that truly have, I think, have elevated air power to its rightful position, which is air and space power, which is now known by many more people in our country and around the world. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting and look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, from the entire team at USAFA out here.
Thanks, guys.